Breaking point. Zelenskyy secures powerful backing and makes a major statement. Everything is shifting. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy locks in powerful support from Australia as Ukraine pushes for critical air defense missiles amid relentless Russian strikes on cities and civilians. Meanwhile, explosions rock Russia itself. Drones reach Moscow. Ukraine's armed forces surround Moscow with explosive power. Defense plans are hit again. Inside the Kremlin, panic grows as elites turn on each other and power struggles erupt behind closed doors. At the same time, Ukraine makes decisive moves. Surprise appointments, a reshaped command, and a new strategy ahead of possible peace talks. Turkey and Ukraine unite. Erdogan draws the line. Diplomacy accelerates while the battlefield burns. Earthquakes and floods spread across Russia. War, politics, and chaos collide, and the consequences are unfolding. What's really happening? Who is losing control and who is preparing the final move? Today we'll break down what's happening right now. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. Maria Farafonova here with the latest updates. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy continues to secure strong international backing for Ukraine. In a conversation with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, he focused on Ukraine's defense needs and Russia's ongoing strikes against Ukrainian cities and communities.
The Prime Minister pledged assistance, and I am deeply grateful for that. Air defense missiles are needed every single day, just as daily support for our defense is essential. I outlined the current diplomatic situation and our next steps. The Prime Minister acknowledged our efforts. Thank you for the kind words about Ukraine and the Ukrainian people.
President Zelenskyy also personally expressed his condolences to the Prime Minister over the terrorist attack at Bondi Beach last month. 6 of the victims were of Ukrainian origin. The president conveyed Ukraine's solidarity to the families and loved ones of all those affected. Russia appeared unprepared for the scale of the Ukrainian drone operation. Multiple drones were reported near Moscow, triggering a wave of messages across Russian social media and temporary restrictions in several areas. Russian air defense forces claimed they intercepted 25 drones, while around 40 reportedly fell while approaching Moscow. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin issued a brief statement on the incident. Debris was found across New Moscow, with the Vetro village area reportedly close to the impact zone. Drone activity was also reported in other Russian regions. In Lipetsk Oblast, strikes reportedly affected industrial sites, including the Energia defense plant.
The enterprise is engaged in ensuring the serial production of batteries and accumulators for weapons of the Russian armed forces.
This was the 5th major attack on the facility. A previous strike on Russia's military-industrial sector was recorded in July 2025, highlighting continued pressure on key defense enterprises. Sochi is shaken. An earthquake was reported in the area. Residents described noticeable shaking that forced some people outdoors, while authorities began assessing potential damage.
Residents felt vibrations, including on the 5th through 7th floors. Locals say they were forced to temporarily evacuate their homes. Some people lost items from shelves and cracks appeared in the walls.
Looks like the nature itself despises the aggressor. Heavy rainfall has also affected Russia's Krasnodar region. Rivers have risen, snow is melting rapidly, and local services are monitoring increased flooding risks.
River levels have risen sharply in the Krasnodar Krai.
Turkey is ready to act as a mediator in peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia and to assist in monitoring compliance with a ceasefire between the parties. According to Erdogan, thanks to its ability to remain outside the war, Turkey can become a country that hosts future peace talks and helps monitor any ceasefire between the warring sides.
As Turkey, we are the only actor that can speak directly with both Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelenskyy, while at the same time maintaining strong and balanced diplomatic contacts and taking concrete initiatives in Washington, Brussels, NATO, and the United Nations.
The Turkish president also noted that when conditions are right, Turkey is ready to once again make Istanbul the center of peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. At this moment, events are unfolding rapidly and the situation is changing by the minute. Reports are coming in from multiple areas, movements are being recorded, and decisions are being made in real time. What is happening now has direct consequences, both on the front line and beyond it. Only by looking at the full picture can the real meaning of these developments be understood. All the key details, confirmed information, and the latest footage in our full overview.
Kupiansk has been almost completely retaken. Fewer than 100 occupiers remain alive in the city. And the Ukrainian armed forces will neutralize them in the coming days, assures Viktor Trehubov, spokesperson for the Joint Forces Group. According to him, the operation to clear Kupiansk is nearing its end. For the most part, the Russians are hiding in basements in the central and northwestern parts of the city, from where they are being effectively and impressively, smoked out by our defenders.
The overwhelming majority, in fact, an absolute majority of the city is controlled by the armed forces of Ukraine. Moreover, in some areas that are not under control, according to fairly well-confirmed reports, Russian forces are surrounded, and therefore there is a high chance that they will be destroyed, captured, or finished off. This is what is de facto happening on the ground.
The situation for the occupiers in the Kharkiv direction is so dire that even the most notorious Kremlin Z supporters can't stay silent about the Russian army's failure. Not even the most hardened Kremlin Z propagandists are able to keep quiet.
Russian military bloggers are squealing like pregnant pigs. Although, no, that's not the right way to put it. No, of course they're not squealing. Pregnant pigs don't squeal at all, it's just regular squealing. And pregnant pigs don't stand up. And ours, let's say, are cawing like crows, saying everything is lost.
And all this is happening against the backdrop of Putin personally ordering Russian commanders to capture Kupiansk by February.
Everything is based on a single thesis: on Russia's aggressiveness.
The occupiers are still hoping to storm and capture the long-suffering Pokrovsk. Despite constant local assaults, Ukrainian units still maintain control over the northern part of the city. And more importantly, they are holding back the enemy on the approaches to Myrnohrad.
Their objective is to capture Pokrovsk and Myrnohrad. They will try to accomplish it. And for that, they will try to use various tactics that, in their opinion, might bring them success. Right now, they have one approach. In a week, it will be something else. In 2 weeks, maybe they'll come up with something new. But as long as this objective remains, they will, unfortunately, try to do everything and use manpower as a resource for it. That's their usual rule of action.
Because of this, the logistical situation remains difficult. However, the Ukrainian command is taking all necessary measures to expand transport corridors toward Myrnohrad in order to strengthen the supply and support capabilities for our units. At the same time, in Myrnohrad itself, the military explains, Ukrainian units are reliably holding defensive lines and destroying the enemy as they approach the city. As evidence, our drone pilots are publishing yet another series of unsuccessful attempts to storm our positions. As a result, the occupiers have lost almost all of their assault troops. Just imagine, in 2 years, Russian forces have lost in the Pokrovsk area armored vehicles and tanks alone, an amount comparable to at least 5 divisions. The Institute for the Study of War provides shocking data. According to their calculations, the Kremlin has burned through over 1,000 armored vehicles and more than 500 tanks near Pokrovsk. Since then,
Russian forces have changed their tactics, abandoning mechanized assaults in favor of larger infantry operations. Presumably, this is to preserve equipment that has low survivability against Ukrainian drones. This shift has allowed Russian forces to continue their advance literally on foot and with heavy losses. As a result,
since October of last year alone, the Russians have lost up to 25,000 soldiers during the capture. About 30 square kilometers in the Pokrovsk area.
In total, 2 direct hits. Quadcopter burning, another quadcopter burning, another quadcopter burning. Buggy. Vehicle. Kia. We have 6, a distinct number, then 7, following closely. Next is 8, a symmetrical digit. After that, 9, almost reaching double figures. And finally, 10, a complete number. And
that's how all the enemy's attempts to break through the Ukrainian defense end. Only the Alpha Special Forces of the Security Service of Ukraine, In just the past 2 weeks, they have struck at least 7 enemy tanks, 45 armored vehicles, and 13 artillery systems and MLRS with attack UAVs. And in addition, SBU pilots destroyed 3 Russian air defense systems, 2 electronic warfare systems, 255 vehicles, and over 1,000 enemy positions and fortifications. And as the cherry on top, 5 ammunition depots and 2 fuel and lubricant storage facilities of the Russian army. And even though Russian propaganda actively conceals the real situation at the front and carefully hides the occupiers' losses, this information, albeit with a delay, still reaches Russian contract soldiers through word of mouth.
It's quite unclear what exactly to fully expect, what lies ahead, but officially speaking, we're flying into the siege zone to make up for the losses. As far as I fully understand, there are a significant amount of losses, unfortunately. That's why they're sending everyone there. No one is being downgraded in terms of fitness category. We even have a guy here on crutches.
But Russian generals care little about the morale and physical condition. They care little about the soldiers. In pursuit of yet another fake report for Putin, the command is ready to throw hundreds of thousands of soldiers onto the battlefield, achieving no results in return just so they don't anger the man in the bunker.
From the war, you either come back disabled or feet first.
Budanov has become head of the Office of the President of Ukraine. Fedorov has been appointed Minister of Defense, replacing Shmyhal. Who else may be replaced? What does President Zelenskyy himself say about these decisions, and why is he taking these steps amid preparations for peace negotiations between Kyiv and Moscow? We have gathered all available information.
A total overhaul of the security bloc in Ukraine. The start of the new year was marked by a series of dismissals and appointments in the highest echelons of power, the most high profile of which was the appointment of the head of the main intelligence directorate, Kirill Budanov, as the head of the president's office. Experience and strength. Kirill has enough of both to steer the work of the office towards security issues and the negotiation process exactly as needed. Budanov's main task is to improve Ukraine's position in negotiations using his intelligence experience, and obviously his instincts. Analysts note that today meetings between delegations often resemble real spy games where every word is worth its weight in gold and the essence must be read between the lines. No one doubts that Kirill Oleksievich possesses such skills.
Budanov is unlikely to be the kind of person who will just break everything down and build an entirely new hierarchy, partly because he has clearly defined areas of activity. And they are logical. I want to emphasize again, this includes both defense and in fact diplomacy, because Budanov has already been involved in recent Ukrainian delegations. He met with Americans and with Europeans. And by the way, he might even end up leading the Ukrainian delegation now. Perhaps these are the kinds of changes we can expect. In that context, Budanov would make much more sense than, for example, Yermak did, since Budanov has specific and quite successful experience.
At the same time, analysts note Budanov's deep ties with the United States, which is one of the main parties in the peace negotiations, and this will also work in Ukraine's favor. He underwent special training with the CIA and also received medical treatment in the United States after being wounded. That's what is publicly known.
Budanov's connections with the US go way back. He underwent training under a special program within the structures of the US Armed Forces. And this is very important in terms of achieving mutual understanding and reaching any ceasefire or peace negotiations. Moreover, the Ukrainian public trusts him. He appears to be a new figure, untainted by reports of corruption.
At the same time, changes have also affected the army. Mikhailo Fedorov, who was previously responsible for digitalization in Ukraine, has been appointed as the new Minister of Defense.
Mikhailo is deeply involved in drone-related matters and has been highly effective in digitalizing government services and processes. In summary, all our military personnel, the military command, together with national arms manufacturers and Ukraine's partners, need to implement this in the defense sector. These are the kinds of changes that will help. Everything depends on the resilience of Ukrainians. Our resilience must be equipped with the necessary weapons.
Analysts add that weapons must continue to exist and develop even after the war. After all, no matter what security guarantees our allies provide, in the end, only a strong Ukrainian army will unequivocally guarantee us peace. And the technological advancement of processes in the Ministry of Defense can ensure the necessary growth of our defense industry.
The main question of this negotiation process: what can stop Russia? What security guarantees, what kind of assistance can be provided to Ukraine to convincingly deter Putin from further offensives and the pursuit of his broader geopolitical goals?
At the same time, some of Zelensky's decisions regarding the security forces remain outside the public eye for now. Among the most high-profile questions is whether the head of the SBU, Vasyl Malyuk, will be replaced. Such speculation has caused concern for many. At the same time, changes will also affect Ukraine's internal security sector, in particular the State Border Guard Service and the State Bureau of Investigation.
I have instructed the preparation of a presidential bill to update the State Bureau of Investigation. There are things that should be changed. The bill is expected in January, so it can be submitted to the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine for consideration. Officials and the office together must prepare a proposal regarding the State Bureau of Investigation.
Zelensky has promised to announce his further important decisions later this week, so in the coming days we will very likely see new significant personnel changes that should effectively strengthen Ukraine's overall position.
Russia is fracturing from within. Behind-the-scenes maneuvering in the Kremlin is intensifying. According to sources, Andrei Belousov's position at the Ministry of Defense is under serious threat. Putin is reportedly dissatisfied with the pace of the so-called fast plan, and the full liberation of the DPR expected in 2025 has not materialized. Meanwhile, Sergei Shoigu is openly signaling his ambitions, ready to propose his own strategy for a swift liberation and seemingly eager to return to his former post. Who will outplay in the struggle for the ministerial seat? We break it down in our report.
Belousov, you're out. There are rumors that Putin wants to replace the Minister of Defense.
Andrei Romish, do you have anything to add?
No, everything is going according to plan, very dynamically. I would even say, well, as Valery Vasilievich precisely reported, significantly ahead of the planned pace that was originally and carefully considered. Indeed, in December we reached the highest pace for the entire year.
The thing is, Bunker Nova is dissatisfied with Andrei Belousov's slowness regarding the capture of the Donetsk region.
According to several of our sources in the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin is unhappy with the fact that Andrei Belousov cannot promise the complete liberation of the DPR this year. Andrei Romovich upsets Vladimir Vladimirovich when he says that we are unlikely to liberate the DPR before February-March 2027. There are no decisions yet regarding the Minister of Defense, but we would recommend that Belousov give it some thought. About greater work efficiency, a source in the Kremlin close to the president told us.
Putin has not been satisfied with Belousov for several months now. One of the nails in the coffin of Belousov's ministerial career was the failure of the operation in Kupiansk.
The Western troop grouping captured the strategically important city of Kupiansk, which the enemy is unsuccessfully trying to take back.
The Western grouping's units liberated the city of Kupiansk.
So that's it, it's completely finished.
That's right, the city is under our control.
City controls Ukrainian armed forces, but Putin was lied to, told that Russia was making successful advances.
As a result, all of this creates a distorted picture of the actual situation. And Putin, who boasted to Trump, for example, about military successes, saying that we are making progress, it turns out that there are no such successes. Of course, as they say, every problem has a first and last name in this case. Every defeat has its own father. Putin doesn't want to take on this responsibility himself, but it's easier to shift it onto Belousov.
After the setup with Kupiansk, Belousov tried to make amends to Putin and began talking about problems in that direction. True, it didn't help, but Belousov was saved by the planned terror campaign against Ukraine.
Vladimir Vladimirovich categorically rejected the information that Kupiansk was not under our control. He was receiving reports of successes from Gerasimov and was himself making important statements about the liberated city. In the defense minister's report, the president saw an attempt to misinform him for some unclear purpose. To be honest, he was very angry and wanted to immediately dismiss Belousov, our source in the Kremlin familiar with the situation reported. According to him, Belousov kept his position only thanks to the strike on Kyiv that was carried out on Saturday. Vladimir Vladimirovich decided to give the minister a chance, as he so vividly demonstrates the power of Russian weaponry to the whole world and delivers crucial strikes against the capital of the Kyiv regime. In a way, you could say Belousov got lucky.
But less than a week had passed before talk of Belousov's possible dismissal resurfaced.
The arguments in favor of his removal could be the simplest ones. Belousov is not a military man, he doesn't understand anything. All he knows is how to count money, but war, that's a big pit, it needs a lot of money, so why do we even need Belousov, so to speak? The idea when he was replaced with Shoigu was to shake things up, to give new momentum, but as we can see, there is no new momentum at all. And I think that removing Belousov is technically possible, so that Putin himself doesn't have to take responsibility for these failures.
Kremlin-affiliated channels are reporting that while Belousov is being prepared for dismissal, one old reindeer herder is rejoicing.
I want to thank Sergei Kashkedovich Shoigu for what he has accomplished over the past years in building up the armed forces and giving them a new image.
The former Minister of Defense and current Secretary of Russia's Security Council, Sergei Shoigu, is already preparing a plan to return to the post of minister.
Rumors about Vladimir Vladimirovich Belousov's dissatisfaction have reached Sergei Shoigu. Despite several unsuccessful attempts, he has not given up hope of returning to the post of Minister of Defense. Sergei Kuzhugetovich is preparing his own plan for the swift liberation of the DPR. There was already such a plan in the summer, but Putin did not take it seriously, and literally in a couple of weeks he will present it to the president. Sergei Kuzhugetovich is glad to offer his military experience in these challenging times. Don't forget that under Minister Shoigu, the special military operation began and a successful mobilization was carried out. And there was a lot more as well. I think the president will draw his own conclusions about who deserves to hold the post of Minister of Defense more.
However, even such courtesy and Shoigu's efforts to return to the Ministry of Defense are unlikely to help. After all, if Shoigu were that skilled, he wouldn't have left the ministry at all.
You can want anything you like, but as we understand, Shoigu has lost Putin's trust. That's the main thing after all. And it's no coincidence that all his close associates, his inner circle, some have been imprisoned, some have supposedly shot themselves or jumped out of windows. That's why he isn't trusted. On top of that, he has lost his authority in the army. And without authority, as you understand, there's really nothing to do there. And
as for Belousov, his future career is quite clear. He will leave the Ministry of Defense. And it seems he isn't really against it. After all, he headed the Ministry of Defense reluctantly.
There are plenty of positions, enough sinecures. For example, they could send him to the Federation Council. There's Valentina Matvienko there, an old lady. She's already over 75. They could make him her deputy so that in a year or so he could replace her. Well, I mean, they could send him to the State Duma, for example. But they could send him to the Security Council. After all, they found a spot for Medvedev there, came up with the position of deputy chairman of the Security Council. So they'll think of something for Belousov too. As I understand it, Belousov didn't really want to go to the Ministry of Defense, actually. He's more from the scientific, you could say, academic sphere. He just got pulled in there. So this really isn't his field at all, and he was probably well aware of that. He knew that all the blame would fall on him.
The future of the Ministry of Defense leadership will depend on the chief of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov. According to experts and analysts, he is practically the only military man whom Putin trusts. Yes, he lied about Kupiansk too, but at least he's a loyal dog.
Valery Alexeyevich, your report is accepted. Thank you. The situation on the line of contact. Understood.
So it is Gerasimov who will be the one to propose candidates for the new Minister of Defense to Putin.
Most likely it will be someone very close to President Putin, perhaps one of his most trusted aides, or even someone who is, in a very real sense, personally recommended by General Gerasimov himself. Gerasimov is widely considered the most loyal and trusted military figure for President Putin, primarily because he unequivocally did not support Prigozhin's ill-fated mutiny. We are well aware that General Popov and several other high-ranking generals had various dealings and connections with Prigozhin, which further complicates the situation and highlights the intricate power dynamics at play within the Russian military establishment. This was a huge blow for Putin. He felt vulnerable, realizing that the army was not on his side. That's why he needs a certain support within the army. He believes that Gerasimov is actually a pretty good military man.
Who will be the next minister? Avroni Arav, it's still unclear. But one thing is certain, Shoigu will not give up trying to stay close to power.
That's all for now. Stay with us to be the first to know what's happening right now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon.